Tycoon Stephen Low and Joseph Lau jailed by Macau court. Looking for the missing plane in the Indian Ocean. And deadly knife fight in Hunan province.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the verdict in a high-profile corruption trial in Macau. Hong Kong tycoons Stephen Low and Joseph Lau have each been sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in jail for bribery and money laundering. But as Diane To reports, they may not have to serve their sentences if they don't set foot in the enclave in the near future.
Neither Joseph Lau nor Stephen Low appeared in court today. The defense teams submitted medical certificates claiming they were ill. Lau, chairman of Chinese Estates, and Low, chairman of BMA Investment, were accused of offering a 20 million Hong Kong dollar bribe to Macau's disgraced public works chief, Alman Long. The court heard the bribe was to secure the development rights to 5 plots of land for luxury homes, the La Scala project developed by Chinese Estates. Lau is serving a lengthy jail term in Macau for corruption. In his verdict, Judge Mario Augusto Silvestre said he believed Stephen Low was the middleman from the very start between Joseph Lau and Alman Long, who was in charge of the auction process. The judge said Low bought a small local company, Moon Ocean, just before the tender, and the firm won the bid despite its lack of real estate experience. But Low never conducted research on the land, while Lau actually went and inspected the site, proving that Lau was in fact the one interested in it. The court said evidence showed that Low's payment came in the form of a $250 million loan from a subsidiary owned by Lau. And through a convoluted process involving different subsidiaries, $20 million was paid to Lau. Both Lau and Low were found guilty of bribery and money laundering and sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in jail each.
We were not able to understand exactly
The defendant's lawyer has said they will file for an appeal and they have 20 days to do so. Macau does not have a rendition treaty with Hong Kong, so the court has no way to force the pair to serve their sentences in the enclave. The statute of limitation in Macau is 10 years. That means if Lau and Low do not enter the enclave for 10 years, their sentences will then expire. Diane To, TVB News.
A total of 9 suspects who were arrested in Hong Kong in connection with the attack of former Mingpao chief editor Kevin Lau have been granted bail. 7 of them were arrested on Wednesday, and 2 others were detained during the early morning hours yesterday. 2 Hong Kong residents who were arrested in Guangdong province are still in mainland police custody. The pair are believed to be triad members and suspected to have carried out the attack on Lau.
The government has suggested a heftier fine for shopkeepers who extend their business onto the streets. This in an attempt to clamp down on the act, which some say poses a threat to pedestrians and motorists. Evelina Leung tells us more.
Shops putting stuff onto the sidewalk is quite a common sight. However, the government pointed out these scenarios could impede pedestrian flow and pose traffic hazards to both pedestrians and motorists. Right now, different government departments, such as the police and the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department, can regulate these shops under different regulations. However, if a shopkeeper is accused of breaking the rules, it usually takes 3 to 4 months before the court can process the case, and the average fine is $600. Some say that's too low and fails to serve as a deterrent. Today, the Home Affairs Bureau unveiled a consultation document and suggested a fixed penalty of a $1,500 fine. If that's approved, officials can issue a ticket to the shopkeeper immediately after the shopkeeper is found to have violated the rules.
A fixed penalty system would help the enforcement departments better enforce their powers over this problem, because it would carry a larger deterrent effect in the sense that the normal sort of prosecution process would take a long time, and also the penalties handed down by the courts have not had a very great deterrent effect. And if the fixed penalty can be fixed at around, say, $1,500 per ticket, then if it can be repeatedly issued, then I think it will really carry a very heavy deterrent effect, on the offenders.
However, Yang said exemptions could be granted to some shops. The consultation begins today and ends on July 14th. Evelyn Alang, TVB News.
Stunning revelations that the missing Malaysia Airlines plane may have continued flying for hours after it dropped off radar have triggered a major shift in the international search mission. And one satellite company in the United States says it's figured out a way people around the world can pitch in and help. The U.S. government is adamant evidence should not be ignored that a faint signal from the Rolls-Royce engine on that missing Boeing 777 was detected for up to 4 hours after it lost contact. The White House insists such revelations warrant widening the search.
Based on some new information that's not necessarily conclusive, but new information, an additional search area may be opened in the Indian Ocean.
The U.S. military is currently scouring the Strait of Malacca, but based on the new information, is now working to expand their search. A move Malaysian authorities originally disagreed with.
As far as Rolls-Royce and Boeing are concerned, those reports are inaccurate.
But while rejecting the U.S. report as wrong, Malaysian authorities suddenly decided today to go ahead and widen the search.
In this case, the information we have forces us to look further.
Search teams have come up empty-handed after China released satellite imagery yesterday detecting possible wreckage. Exacerbating ongoing confusion was this letdown.
We have contacted the Chinese embassy, who notified us this afternoon that the images were released by mistake.
But a Colorado company called Digital Globe disagrees, saying the more people searching, the faster the outcome. On the company's TomNod website, it currently has 1 million people scanning its satellite images for clues to the fate of the vanished jetliner.
So a C-130 can only cover 30 square kilometers in 8 hours. Well, we can get the satellite to take a picture of a 2,000 square kilometer swath and cover it in 10 minutes. With thousands of human eyeballs.
The search for flight MH370 has now entered its 7th day, with more than a dozen countries scouring vast swaths of land and sea.
5 people were hacked to death and 1 other person was fatally shot by police following a dispute in the city of Changsha in Hunan province. There are concerns the incident may have been racially motivated. Alan Booknia has more.
Reports from Changsha in Hunan province say a knife fight erupted between 2 food vendors this morning. A witness says at least one of them was an ethnic Uyghur. Police said the fight left one of them dead. The other vendor fled and hacked to death 4 more people before being shot by police. 2 of the 4 people hacked died at the scene. The other 2 were later pronounced dead at hospital. The area around the site near the food market was cordoned off by police, and a nearby school was closed as children were not allowed to leave. A stream of online updates of the attack slowed this afternoon, with earlier posts by local media removed from their microblogs, suggesting ethnic sensitivities following another attack 2 weeks ago. That attack at a train station in Kunming in southwestern China saw 29 people killed and about 140 wounded. The government blamed the attack on militants from Xinjiang, home to a large Muslim Uyghur minority. Beijing has not explicitly accused Uyghurs of carrying out the Kunming attack, but by calling the perpetrators Xinjiang extremists, the implication is clear. Many Uyghurs say they are infuriated by Chinese curbs on their culture and religion. The government counters that they are given wide freedoms. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
Clashes between pro-Kiev and pro-Moscow supporters in eastern Ukraine have left 1 person dead and about 30 injured. It is some of the worst violence since Russian troops entered Ukraine's Crimea region 2 weeks ago, and comes just days before a referendum that could split the country. James Aiken has the latest.
Pro-Russia activists and pro-unity demonstrators faced off in the eastern Donetsk region, the home city of deposed President Viktor Yanukovych. At the end of it, one person was dead and many others were hurt. They simply kicked him to death, says this man. This shows you how they resolve disputes here, he says. At the United Nations Security Council, Ukraine's prime minister made another pitch for help in tackling the crisis.
This aggression has no reasons and no grounds. This is absolutely and entirely unacceptable in the 21st century to resolve any kind of conflict with tanks, artillery, and boots on the ground.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, continues to assert that his country has the right to protect Russians in Ukraine. Speaking in Sochi, Putin said Moscow was not the initiator of the circumstances. As preparations continue for the referendum on independence in Crimea, Western powers are turning up the volume on their unified opposition to the vote.
The United States joins with others in calling for the suspension of this ill-conceived initiative, which cannot be recognized as legitimate, especially when carried out against the backdrop of a foreign military incursion.
The U.S. has circulated a draft resolution that would declare the referendum illegal. But Russia, one of the Security Council's 5 veto-wielding permanent members, has already made it clear it will kill it. In Berlin, German Chancellor Angela Merkel continues to lead the European charge for a tough response against Russia.
Ist der Konflikt nicht zu lösen.
Merkel told the German parliament that if Russia continues its course, it will cause massive damage to Russia economically and politically. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is due to meet with his Russian counterpart, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, in London in what may be a last-minute bid to avert the crisis. James Aiken, TVB News.
And still ahead in our newscast, cabbie jailed for overcharging customers. Pan-Democrats still undecided on whether to make Shanghai trip. And Shinzo Abe says no change to comfort women apology.